broadly speaking, I think the good thing from the point of view of the government, when you look at spending, is the fact that there has been a reduction in oil prices, there has been a reduction in the total capital spending, and specifically, I think the total amount of reduction in subsidies has to kind of somehow be, has to basically facilitate more now capital spending. So from subsidies to capital spending and to create infrastructure, to create roads, to create ports, to create more housing is really where I think the government needs to focus on in the current budget. And I think during the course of the day, we've got a lot of eminent speakers who will kind of deliberate about some of the challenges that I've talked about, some of the trends that I've talked about. And more importantly, if housing for all has to become a reality, I think the government is looking to pump in about $2 trillion of investment. But essentially, it's the private sector that needs to come forward and deliver it on the ground, work with the government. These are some of the things that we'll discuss during the course of the day. I'm glad all of you have turned up in large numbers, and I'd again like to thank all of you, and of course all our eminent speakers, and I look forward to a great day of some important deliberations and insight, and look forward to a meaningful and fruitful day. Thank you so much.
The discussion is really on housing and how to balance between luxury and affordable housing. As you know, there's a lot of discussion which happens on many conferences, and most of the time we talk about affordable housing, and somehow luxury housing is seen with a negative impression. My first question really is that the developers are really accused of only developing luxury or expensive housing, whilst the big demand is in so-called affordable housing.
If you look at pan-India, across the country, how much luxury housing is being done? Hardly anything. And if you look at the pyramid of demand, the top is so slim and thin, it doesn't make sense at all to go there aggressively. In fact, it makes more sense to go there, in the middle where there's meat, or maybe at the bottom. But yes, in the NCR, or maybe in Delhi, or maybe in Mumbai, Pune, the good locations which are right there in the city, if you don't do a high-end product, it won't make financial sense because it won't sell at a particular price. So therefore, by default, all developers who have such locations end up doing your high-end housing over there. But as a general rule, no, across the country, definitely not. In fact, we've always maintained in CREDAI, and all our members, 9,000 members, the price ranges between across India, and I'm talking of tier 2, tier 3, 3,500 rupees a square foot to 5,500 rupees a square foot, because it doesn't sell more than that. You can't launch a 10,000 rupee product in a tier 2 moderate location and you assume that it will sell very fast or it will sell at all.
Even these big cities have large amount of demand which is at the mid-income level or lower income level housing. So Mr. Raheja, what can be done to address this?
First major thing which needs to be addressed is the pro rata cost of land, because that is the first input ingredient which decides the price of the apartment. If we have to give housing to the poor people, we cannot wish it. We have to facilitate it so that the cost of land, whether it goes through a cross subsidization process or whether it goes through finding a land parcel which is allotted by government at a price, at such a price where a mass housing is created with a very big FAR and density norms, so that you can actually create a mass housing over that. So major solutions largely in such cases depend upon the government. Solutions cannot be based upon books or theory. They differ from city to city, state to state, dynamics to dynamics, requirement to requirement.
Just your thoughts on what can be done to increase our housing stock, and especially in the affordable side.
I think there are two angles as I see it as we look at transactions across the country. There is a changing nature of the consumer, becoming extremely discerning and irrespective of strata. And I'll explain a little later what I mean by that. And the second part, and not necessarily in that order, The fact that input costs are what they are today in any urban conurbation across the country, trying to underwrite a residential project at a unit level below 4,000 or 4,000 rupees, 4,500 rupees a square foot is a massive challenge. And I think that the point there is land is always an expensive raw material, continues to remain so, and as the economy recovers, I suspect that's going to become an even bigger challenge. And input costs, construction costs today for a 19 or a 20 level structure, and correct me, sir, if I'm wrong, is nothing less than 2,000 to 2,500 rupees a square foot on sellable area. So I think to sit here and navel gaze and say we should try and build below that, I think is I need to be wearing I need to be in social housing. And social housing, unfortunately, is not the mandate for a commercial investor who also is taking on tremendous amount of risks in terms of execution, in terms of the entire regulatory environment, and not least the whole tax regime. I think things are improving. It requires, as Mr. Raheja pointed out, a comprehensive strategy at a national level by the federal and the state governments to look at this problem holistically and not just say this is your responsibility or theirs. I'm not suggesting that they are, but I think this needs not just a strategy but also a well-defined execution plan that is monitored both at a federal and at a state level.
Mike, I just wanted to come to you. From your experience, what has been the influence of office development on residential development in that area?
As India has over the last 10, 15 years developed in many different ways, but particularly in our industry, in the real estate industry, where Chan mentioned we've got a different level of aspirations, we've got different expectations, higher expectations, we've got more challenging lifestyles, particularly in lines of commuting around cities. So we're seeing many more either mixed-use developments, where you've got an office adjacent to or with residential, with shopping perhaps, so mini communities. And then I think we're also experiencing where we've built at our Manyata Tech Park, which is about a 9 million square feet office park. All around the perimeter of that, there are a number of residential developers, not only Embassy, who are developing around that. And that's a perfectly symbiotic and positive outcome. It's good for our commercial business park because the employees who work in that park can find affordable housing to rent or to buy.
Coming to another, I think we've talked a lot about low-cost housing. One thing I wanted to ask you, you've been doing development. What are the trends you have seen last 5, 7, 8 years from the consumer side?
I have experienced this firsthand. The customer has started expecting more. We are okay with that. It's a dynamic market. The market forces decide what your specs have to be, how far you'll go to give that X factor in your product so that it sells better than anybody else. So we are okay with the expectation of the customer. But you put in your best. Our customers, we always tend to deliver. If we promise them 10 things, we'll try and deliver 12 so that they are happy and they say, wow, we didn't think that this was going to be there in the complex or for that matter in the house. But somehow or the other, 90% will say they're very happy and things are very good. But there's this 10% who says, no, this you've given. So what? This also we want this also. What happens then is, a person like me says, what's the use of actually, going that extra mile? When my customers anyway don't appreciate what we are doing.
I can assure you it's going to only get worse as people get more demanding. But Mr. Raheja, from your side, what have you seen, especially are you seeing any difference in, what are the services you're providing? Or also, I'm sure the age profile is changing of your customers.
See, today, customer is globally connected. It is not what it used to be even 5-7 years ago. Everybody knows what best is available across the globe. Now you have to keep your customers' vision, dream and expectation into your mind while you are designing a particular project. Now the complexes are going to compete with even the best of luxury hotels. You'll see this happening in next 2-3 years itself. In India, customers are demanding such services and at such level where probably even hotels will vie to get them. We are taking care of that when it comes to the ultimate luxury. People are really taking interest in intelligent homes also.
Okay. Are you seeing any improvement in that on the funding side? Do you see money coming into the real estate industry since last especially 6-12 months, or do you think it's still very slow and challenging?
I think the sentiment has certainly improved quite a lot. I still wouldn't use the expression significantly. I think that's a very loosely used expression these days, because we haven't seen that much long-term capital come in. There's a lot of money. The nature of that money is, I would say, short-term, is high-cost debt. A lot of these investors came in on the back of a macro theme, and India was the flavor of the month between 2005 and 2007. They didn't look at the execution capabilities of a nascent industry and went out there and just allocated capital. And it was hardly surprising, therefore, that a lot of these operators, developers, who received capital, and willingly, why wouldn't they, were not able to manage it. Not because of bad intent. Some maybe, but mostly I would say they were running, small shops, and they wanted to grow their business. It was in the nature of growth capital. They took it in, and they were expected to perform miracles, frankly. It just couldn't happen, and hence I would say that that has left a indelible mark on the minds of those investors.
Pitambar, do you see any improvement? Because I know, as you know better than I, that there has been a huge liquidity issue, funding issue. One change I'm seeing, there's domestic money going into real estate, but what are you seeing? Are more people approaching you?
We are doing mass housing, and we are doing very little high-end housing. So when you do mass housing, cost of capital is very important. Not for bottom lines, but so that you can give a great price to your customer. We are seeing more people coming in, and for the domestic funds, our single requirement is, please bring down your expectation from a 20 plus to a, maybe something between a 15 and a 20. And for FDI, we are seeing foreign money, people have started talking to us, but we are only speaking to those institutions who have long-term capital, who have at least a 7-year horizon. Otherwise, there's no point. You can't partner with a financial institution who wants to come in, make the money, and quickly leave you. I mean, whether you're healthy or not financially, they just want to dump you, make the money, and go away. That doesn't work, and I would not advise any of the developers to go in for such a financial partnership or arrangement with any FDI, because it may sound very lucrative to begin with, but in the end, you are left in the lurch when you really need that help, when you need that financial help. So yes, people are coming in, and the good news is that foreign institutions are speaking to us with a 7-year horizon.
Mr. Rajat, are you seeing any people, investors coming back? I'm talking from the funding side for development.
The truth is, since the market is not really very good since last 2 years, sales volumes have decreased, and because of that, I get across talking to a lot of developers in the country. They are having liquidity crunch. financial mismatches stirring. And on the other side of it, the funders are more, trying to make hay. They are, asking for such high rate of returns.
Chinese
and they're trying to make use of the opportunity.
Mike, I just want to talk about, there's a lot of discussion on REIT. What role do you think REIT will play in our real estate market?
So I think picking up on points that were made by each of the panelists, for sure there are more people coming in and kicking the tires, having a look at your product, whether that be residential product or business park product. I think a week doesn't pass by that we have an overseas significant institutional investor come and visit us to metaphorically kick the tires.
Which is positive because this wasn't happening.
So that wasn't happening 18 months ago.
Lots of interest here now.
What Chan said about investors having had their fingers burnt is 100% correct. What Mr. Anand alluded to, that investors, well, just as we talked about your residential customers, they know what's going on in the world outside, they know what standards are there and so on. The same is true about overseas investors looking in. We all in this room now have a fairly good idea of the reputation of everybody who's in this industry, and that's quite transparent now. So there is a focusing down or focusing up, but a concentration around established developers, whether that be residential or commercial.
I want to compliment RICS, Sachin. We happen to work with the Ministry of Housing and Urban Poverty Alleviation for a very long time. We had support, and RICS had deputed its staff also, along with the ministry. Now at that time, the things had virtually been ready to a great extent, but then the government changed. The new government has taken all these things in a very right, earnest and positive perspective. And since last 4-5 months, we had more than, I think, 6-7 high-level presentations, even involving states also. And the thing is almost ready now. So I want to compliment you, because this is something where we have been working, all of us working together to make things happen. So ease of doing business. I want to convey the message to the world. India is going to be the place to invest. And it's going to happen in a very, very short time from now. You'll see that news coming anytime.
Fantastic. That sounds too good to be true, but I just hope that happens sooner than later. Starting with you, Gutambar, I always get asked, when is the market going to recover? And I just want to put everybody else on the spot, because I get put on the spot all the time.
If you say that the investors not coming to the market, that is why the market is slow, then I think the expectations are wrong somewhere. The problem is where the pricing has gone wrong, where the product is too expensive and it is not being delivered. Wherever there's good delivery, wherever the price is right, the market is very robust, the demand is good, you'll sell.
But the fact is, I agree with you partially that there are projects doing well, but the fact is sales have declined since last year, and the statistics shows that the sales have dropped across India, more in New Delhi, NCR and Mumbai compared to other cities, but overall the percentage of sales have fallen. So,
but our industry, we're all old enough to know that our industry is a cyclical industry.
Thing.
There's a 2 or 3 year lag. Yeah. And somebody mentioned earlier on that now what's going to happen, there's a shortage of supply in commercial office space in Bangalore. Yeah. Everyone will pile in 2 to 3 years' time, there'll be an oversupply.
Which is fine. But my question still is to Mr. Reja, when is the recovery going to happen?
Give us money to buy houses, we'll buy houses. As long as our customers can afford to buy according to their requirement, the market is all about it. Even if in between you get investors, but it is the ultimate is the customer.
Budget being next week, starting with Chan, what are the 2 things you would want the budget to really announce, which you think would help the real estate market?
If there is some kind of incentive to the retail buyers residential apartments. So what do I mean by that? Today the deduction limits are what, a couple of lakhs per annum.
Yeah.
Now that was a deduction that was introduced in the early part of the millennium. It needs to be inflation adjusted. If that can be brought up, that provides another fillip.
It'll go to at least 5 lakhs if you adjust it to inflation.
Yeah, that gives
That
the
2
fillip
lakh figure will go to 5 lakhs.
for potential new buyers to look at buying and creating a new asset and helping the recovery of the sector.
Chan has already said what one of the points which I was thinking of. But the low-hanging fruit, immediate low-hanging fruit is that they should allow from capital gains. Suppose somebody sells an ancestral property. They say you can only buy one property. If you may get much more money, but you can only buy one property to offset the capital gain.
That's right.
Now, if my father had some ancestral property which he sells today, and he has 3 children, he would like to buy 3 properties, but they're limiting him to buy just one. So we are saying Section 54 of the Act says that you can only buy one property to offset capital gains. So we are saying let them have more than one property, at least 2 to offset that capital gains tax. Second thing is, there are some horrible things in the Income Tax Act which actually kill the market. One is Section 43C. I think not many people know about 43C. 43C, and we've spoken to the Finance Minister about it. It says, now stamp duty is a state subject.
That's right.
So all states are increasing the circle rates because they want more stamp duty. So much so that in Maharani Bagh in Delhi today, the real price per square yard is 5 lakh rupees and the circle rate is 7 lakh rupees. So 43C says that if in case you buy an apartment for say 4,000 rupees a square foot and the circle rate is 6,000 rupees a square foot, on that 2,000 rupees a square foot, my buyer pays 30% income tax and I also pay 30%. This is ridiculous. And this should be totally done away with. Absolutely. There's another section, and this is low-hanging fruit. Section 24 again of the Act. It says that if my home buyer takes a home loan to buy a house and that project is not completed in 3 years, he is not entitled to take that exemption under the Income Tax Act. Now, which project is completed in 3 years? Because it takes me 2 years to get my approvals.
Yep.
So this is ridiculous. These things need to be addressed immediately. This is the low-hanging fruit.
Mr. Reja, 2 points from your
First thing is, you may have to give some stimulus or whatever way. You have to reduce the interest rates for home buys, at least for affordable housing segment, maybe up to 50 lakhs to approximately 67%. So that is number 1. And number 2, please give infrastructure status to the housing sector at least, if not the entire real estate sector.
Great. Mike, 2 points, please.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think there's some excellent points, particularly around the circle rates. It won't surprise you that being focused on the commercial real estate sector, I'm very interested to see how the tax treatment around potential REITs comes out. There's an issue around capital gains tax and dividend distribution tax. If those 2 issues are addressed, the benefit to the real estate industry, residential and commercial, across the board, will run to billions of dollars.
Absolutely.
And so instead of looking at what's the potential loss in capital gains tax, if one looks at what the benefit is to the industry as a whole and the liquidity and the lower cost capital and giving a kickstart to some areas that have slowed down over the last couple of years, I think it can have a transformational impact on our industry and in some senses on our urban landscape.
Yes.
Great. Thank you. Thank you.
issue.
Thank you very much.